Let's review Mastery Pre-Quiz 4.2. And you made corrections here, so this is the corrected version. So in each problem, so let's look at number 1. It says evaluate m of 3. And that's just how you say this, m of 3, right? And basically there's two pieces of this. This tells us which function to use, and this tells us what to plug in, right? And so imagine that when we talked about these functions being machines, right? Imagine you have like a shelf and you have these 3 machines on it. You have your M machine and your R machine and your F machine, right? And this is just telling you what machine to go get off the shelf. So you're going to go get the M machine, right? The function M off your shelf, which is m of x equals 3x minus 2. But instead of you plugging in x, right, you're going to plug in 3. So m of 3 equals, and then wherever you see x, you're going to plug in that 3. So here's 3, here's the x, okay? And then after that, it's just sort of order of operations. This is multiplication and subtraction. Multiplication comes first. 3 times 3 is 9. And you're done. In the next problem, this tells you to go and get the R machine off the shelf, right, to use the R function. And so we're going to go R, and we're looking for R of 2. And so then instead of the x, we're going to write 2. Negative 5 times 2, right, multiplication first, is negative 10. And negative 10 plus 1 is negative 9. Bottom row. Evaluate m of negative 5. So this tells us go and use the m function, right? Get the m machine. And so I'm looking for m of negative 5. So it's 3x minus 2, so it's 3. Instead of x, I'm going to put negative 5 minus 2. Again, multiplication first. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15 minus 2. These are both negative numbers, so I'm going to add and keep the sign. I get negative 17. And this last one's slightly different. I actually have 2 functions here. This says evaluate R of f of 3. Well, I'm evaluating R of something. What am I evaluating R of? Well, the input for R, right? Like here is m of negative 5, so I just input the negative 5. Well, the input for R is actually this. It's f of 3. Well, what's f of 3? Well, let's figure it out, right? F of 3, I need to evaluate f of 3 first so that I can then evaluate that outside piece, right? So what I do when I have something like this is I start on the inside. I always start on the inside, and then I work my way out. So f of 3, right, this tells me, okay, go and use the f function, right, get the f machine off the shelf. And so f of 3 equals, and this is x squared, so I'm going to write 3 squared. And 3 times 3 is 9. So now what this means, look, is that instead of having r and then in the middle is f of 3, well, I know what f of 3 equals. It equals 9. So now this is going to be r of 9. Right? That's what I'm evaluating next. Make it a little bit neater. R of 9 is what I'm evaluating next, because I've already figured out what f of 3 is. So now I'm going to do r of 9. I'm going to go and get the r function, which is negative 5 times x plus 1. Negative 5 times 9 is negative 45 plus 1. This is a negative and a positive. They have different signs. So I'm going to subtract and keep the sign of the larger number, which is negative. That's the front. If you have questions on the front, please pause, raise your hand now, and ask them. On the back, now we're talking about graphs. Remember, the thing to remember when we talk about graphs is that this is always the input, the x value, and then on the equal side is always the y, the output, okay? So when this says evaluate f of 1, what that means is when the x value is 1, what's the y value? So I go along the x-axis. I go to the x value of 1. I go find my graph, right? Where's my graph when x is 1 over here? Well, it's here. And what's my y value? Also happens to be 1. This is 1. Evaluate f of negative 7. Now, what's the y value when f is negative 7? I'm going to go along the x-axis. I'm going to go to negative 7. I'm going to go find my graph. It's right here. I'm going to go and find the y value, which is 2. And there we go. Now, this question is asking something different. What's x if f of x equals 0? Well, now, I'm not being given an x value right here. I was given an x value here. I was given an x value. Here, what am I given? I'm given the y value, right? That's what this equals. So I'm given the y value. So I'm going to do sort of the opposite. Instead of going along the x-axis and finding a number, I'm going to go along the y-axis. The number I'm finding is 0. So that's here, right? So now, instead of looking like here, when I had 1, I looked up and down the graph to find the graph. Here I'm going to look left and right and find where does my graph have a y value of 0, and it's actually right here, right? This is the point negative 9, 0. The y value is 0. So what is the x value? Well, the x value is negative 9. Last question. The graph of y equals f of x is shown to the right. Which point could be used to find f of 2? Okay, so it's basically telling me that these 4 points are a graph of a function, f of x, and I want to know, well, how would I find f of 2? Well, that's telling me the x value is 2. What's the y value? So I would go, here's the x value of 2. Well, what is the graph? Where is the graph at x value of 2? Well, actually, it's right here, point A, right? These are the only points on the graph, is these 4 points. So what is it at f of 2? Well, it doesn't matter. It's not asking me for what the y value is. It's asking me just which point would I note and look for the y value. Well, I look for point A. And we're done.